Yes, welcome back. This is A RAP Critic. I'm your host, your boy Malik 16. And I can tell you where I grew up at, but I didn't flip coke or blow up there. So
Yeah.
I am joined by two very special guests who helped us out. Y'all might remember them from the first episode where we went over category one, which was the album and the product. Of course, the album that we're talking about is none other than the classic from 2001, Foxy Brown's Broken Silence. And y'all remember the introductions? I got Miss Kween Kash and I got Miss Krishna here. And it is Women's History Month, so we're doing it big for the culture, for all of our beautiful women out there, beautiful black women. Make some noise for that. Let's go. And they from Brooklyn, so I got backup. I can't protect it.
Stop playing.
All right, so hopefully y'all left your rankings, y'all visited therapmovie.com, y'all been voting and scoring this album with us. If not, go do so, or you can leave your comments below. And while you're at it, like and subscribe. With no further ado, we're jumping into category two, which is the rap performance on the album. First dimension that we talk about when we go over category two is dimension one, personality and charisma. So how much personality and charisma does Foxy put across on this album? What makes her make you care about what she's saying?
I feel like for me, I can notice the maturity, even the way that the album started. It made me know that, okay, she's going to talk about some things that we heard about, but we'll be able to hear it from her mouth, you know? So I was like, looking forward to that. Also, generally just, you know, she was still on the brand stuff, but not as heavily as I feel like she was before. So that was appreciated. And even the gangster stuff, like, fell back from that too. Like, she found some other things to speak about. So I definitely appreciated that.
Yeah, I hear a lot of talk about pain on this album, and it felt organic. It felt like I'm not just saying pain for the sake of saying pain. I'm going to tell you the type of pain that I was going through. And she says lines like, you know, fame's supposed to bring you happiness. Y'all don't know the stress and pressures that have been dealt with. So she's giving you reason. She's hooking you in with reason to listen. And of course, the controversy angle. I mentioned that she's taking shots at people that you once saw her closely connected to. So everybody can get it. You know, we mentioned in category one, the other female rap feature on it, who compared to Foxy sounds like she was reading her lyrics off paper. Like, she's saying a lot of rhymes like, so what? But there's just no life behind it. She's like, so what if I'm right?
No flow. It was no flow. I was like, why am I hearing this? Like,
Right.
who is this a favor to? Who is this?
Exactly. And then Foxy comes in so effortlessly. So
Yeah.
Well, I think this album, I mean, I think I said this already, but I'll just say it again. I think this is her most authentic album. And I think it's most authentic because it's not as geared. It doesn't feel like it's been crafted, right? Like Il Nana feels like it's crafted around this. What am I doing for the guys to pay attention to me? And this is album number 3, and it's almost like at that point she's got the respect of the industry. So she like, what do I have to lose at this point? So I'm gonna be my most authentic self. So yeah, I feel like this is the most authentic of the 3 albums.
Yeah, so it's there, and that's something to consider on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats. How much personality and charisma do you get from Foxy? Scale from 1 to 5, Cash, what you giving this?
I'm gonna give it a 4.5, because there were times where some of her lyrics like really made me like laugh even, but in a good, admirable way. Like, I was enjoying it. Like, yo, she crazy, you know? Like, oh, she's going off right now, you know? So
She's 7:30.
Yeah,
right.
So yeah, I'll give it a good 4.5. I enjoyed how I interpreted her on this album.
Okay. Krishna, what you giving it on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats?
I'm definitely giving it a 4.5.
Nice.
I mean, I might even be like 4.7, right? Because I feel like she risked a lot with this album, you know,
We started
putting aside
young.
all the things we expected, calling out people. That's a very Brooklyn way to be. Like, you know what?
Yeah.
I've had enough, so I'm about to tell you about yourself. And it's not like she was calling out Joe Schmo on the corner. She was calling out some of the biggest people in the industry at the moment. So I give her 4.5. It's still.
That takes us to dimension 2. Suspension of disbelief or believability. And so we usually put these together because when it's an album where a rapper isn't a character and it's understood, like a MF Doom or Dr. Octagon or even Slim Shady, then you know what you're getting. They're going to say outlandish, unrealistic stuff because they're in character. Foxy is telling you this is Foxy. So the question becomes, how much do we believe Foxy? Now this is where the ghostwriter conversation comes up. I was a little disheartened when I did my research for this album because I know I'd always heard the whisperings about other
You're about to
writers.
ruin it for me. Oh no.
Other writers being in the mix. And so at first I was like, oh, I don't see anybody because I've always understood that, and I hate to bring her up, Foxy got way more writing respect from the industry than Kim always did.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember hearing, and so I was digging, and I remember the song BK Anthem in particular, it's not credited to Foxy at all. The writer is a rapper from Brooklyn named Christopher Rucker. And I remember hearing that back in the day. But I think more disheartening is the presence of this rapper named Red Handed. So Juan Cordova. Red Handed was in this group called One Life to Live, which was Timbaland.
I know that guy.
Yeah, and so he wound up being, when the deal with Timbaland folded, he wound up being back in Foxy's camp when she was starting her Fox 5 label with her brother Gavin. So you see his name in the credits for all the dope songs too, all the songs where it really sounds like Fox is in her bag.
Okay.
So, and it doesn't take away from the fact that Fox writes. Fox writes, and she mentions that on the song 730. She's like, yeah, he wrote some rhymes, but I write rhymes too. I write my stuff.
I blew him up the same.
Right. So
Yeah.
she makes it known she does write, but you know, we know rappers get help in the studio. But because of that, whenever we know that there's a ghost hand in there, the believability gets a little saturated and you have to start taking things with a grain of salt. And I always wondered when I heard the line in BK Anthem when she's like, where I grew up, sold cokehead or flip cokehead.
Yeah.
I'm like, that don't sound like Fox. And she's talking heavy gangster stuff. So I love what you said, Cash, about some of the gangsters toned down. I think what we saw leave from the other two albums was the mafioso gangster talk.
Right.
Back when Nas and Jay-Z were writing their rhymes, there was a lot of Baba and Tata and Papa,
Yes.
right? But also a lot of Italianos. I'm going to meet this dude at the Italian restaurant. And we're not hearing that anymore. She went for a more grounded, boots on the ground gangsterism. Like, look, I know dudes who bust their guns. I bust my gun too. It was more grounded, but it is still a question of, do we believe Fox? And if anybody's ever heard Foxy's talking voice, she is Park Slope.
We went to the same high school.
to the death.
Oh,
Like,
what was that?
you hear Foxy, there's two sides of her. She reminds me of people from Brooklyn I know. You got the pink houses Foxy and you got the Park Slope Foxy. So when she raps, she is pink house Foxy. And you know, like, the question is, how much does she make y'all believe?
So, yeah, the perfect example is what you said. Like the Brooklyn song is a little disheartening, right? Because there's lyrics in there that I'm like, I'm not buying from you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would like to hear it be more relative for a young woman like me growing up in Brooklyn.
Right.
You know, Sit Mo threw a bat, perhaps, but Flip Coke blew a bat, absolutely not. You know what I'm saying? And so songs like that is like, but then the songs where she's talking about, you know, slapping and draping bitches up, I believe she would do that shit. So,
Right.
you know?
And then she does give us enough exposition where you get it. And she talks about relationships, and I mentioned how this is a very family oriented album. She references her mom and her brothers a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I remember the XXL magazine cover that came out when this album dropped, and she had her brothers on the cover with her. And she was talking about she's lost so many ties in the industry or can't trust people. It's going back to basics for her. These are who she can trust.
I don't remember that cover. I'm gonna look that up as soon as I pop off. That's crazy.
Yeah, she insisted they were on the cover with her. So Anton and Gav are on there. So I mean, the best albums are albums that give you vulnerability, and she does give you vulnerability on this album. So for as much big bust your gun claims, she gives you almost breakdown music. Sound like Mary J. Blige level breakdown music.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So that part is believable, right? Because we all also know what the circumstances were around Broken Silence. So the depression, the getting back to basics, the cutting people off, the assumption that she has enemies, right? Because we don't know who these enemies were. Like Cass said earlier, we don't know who they are.
Right.
But the assumption that she has these enemies and that people in the industry have, written her off, that part is real, right? Now, being from Brooklyn, there aren't any people in Park Slope flipping coke the way she's talking about. That's not what they do in Park Slope. And I'm from Brownsville. So.
Brownsville?
Right. Foxy would have you think she's from Brownsville the way she's saying.
Right.
I grew up in Brownsville on a block that was tree lined. If you saw that block, you wouldn't think it was Brownsville. You would be like, where am I? Right. But if you walk 2 blocks down, there's Van Dyke Projects, right? Foxy Brown is like Van Dyke Projects. When she starts talking about all that stuff. Now, the thing I will say is because when you do these songs about Brooklyn, that's the only image people want of Brooklyn. Like, I get into a lot of beef with people about this, right? Because I'm like, I'm from Brownsville. I grew up during the crack era. None of that is my reality, though. Right? And I'm okay with saying that. Do I know people? Yes. Have I experienced things? Yes. But that's not my reality. And so on some levels, you want a girl from Park Slope to give you the Brooklyn. I mean, you don't have to be like, hey, I was at the coffee shop, because that's also not her reality, because she's a black woman in Brooklyn.
It was cool for MC Light to be at the coffee shop.
I mean, and MC Light is from East Flatbush. If anybody could rap about the hood, she could rap about the hood. But she chose a different, whatever. But in this particular time of, the only stories people wanted to hear about Brooklyn was that we were shooting up. Like, everywhere you went, like, do you carry a gun? No. You raised such a great point. This is still the industry. I think you said in the first category, you were still coming out the 90s. Rap is still very formulaic. When everybody was wearing jerseys, we all gotta wear jerseys.
Right.
Being different was a risk. We didn't have Kanye to break the mold and be like, look, you don't have to be a thug or player. You can just be something in it. You don't have to be a backpacker. You can be something in between both. Right. So she's telling what the industry wanted to hear about Brooklyn. You don't want to hear why did I need cappuccino in 2001, because it's formulaic. You still got to sell the Prada and the Gucci. Another thing I will say, we had the stories to validate what she was talking about. She might also felt like she needed to double down on the bust your gun because the Hot 97 shooting had just happened. This was off the heels of the Mobb Deep dropping Quiet Storm remix with Kim, which gave Kim like an extra 3 years of hip hop life. Right. And then CNN tries to recreate that because they're beefing with Mobb Deep at that time, and they get Foxy on it. And they this is back in that, no rapper, they throw rocks and hide their hands, right? They're like, we didn't know it would be like that. They knew what they were doing with Bang Bang.
Right.
Foxy's going in on Kim. That leads to the Hot 97 shootout. And so another instance of Foxy almost burning a bridge. And that leads to the infamous trial and Lil' Kim and the jail time and all that stuff. But we know that. So we're waiting to hear what she says. And I think maybe pressure was on her to tough talk, right? The lines that resonate the most, I think, are the stuff where she's one thing I've always respected about Kim and Foxy's beef is when they diss each other, you can hear the respect. Ain't that weird? Do y'all pick up on that? Like they always diss each other respectfully.
Yeah. But that's the way it's supposed to be, right? I'm not supposed to go for the low blow.
Yeah.
Right? I'm supposed to be like, it's almost like I could have beef with you, but that's more about I just don't want you in my space right now.
Right.
That's not about like I hate you. I just don't want you in my space.
Not I hate you. I want bad things to happen.
The way she disses Jay-Z and Kim on this album is with reverence. So she uses Jay-Z lines, she flips them. That's her way. Every time she says something slick about Jay, she uses one of his lines.
She's all right, but she's not real.
Right, she uses one of his lines to diss Kim. And even in that, she's giving her props. She's like, she's all right? And then, but I think the most personal stuff that resonates is the Corrupt stuff. So there's 2 songs where she references her relationship with Corrupt. So on the last song, Broken Silence, the second verse, she's talking about their marriage or their engagement going. She says something like, they don't know you, all they see is the gray and blue, referring to his Crip affiliation. And then she talks about the most important thing was the ring. And that's 5 years and people don't know the truth. I don't care what the headlines say. And you can hear the pain in her verse. But the 7:30 verse where she's going at Natina from Black, that, when I hear that verse, I feel it. Because she says a line there. She says, I don't care if we're together, he's still mine, right? She's saying some real scandalous, stuff that I know a lot of women wouldn't approve of. And she goes, I won't kill you, but I'll hurt you till you're dead inside. I was like,
hey, yo.
That's like real, like that's believable, right?
And people forget this was the year, because Corrupt had just dropped the song the year before, Calling Out Names. He's dissing all the East Coast rappers because he doesn't know who slept with Foxy, but I don't care, somebody slept with him. Big man. And then the next year, the same year this album comes out, he drops this album with Natina singing the hook, and they're in the video saying, it's over now. And they're making all kinds of cutesy insinuations towards Foxy, like bye-bye. And so this is Foxy's retaliation. So when she says that, I'm the one that almost got you kicked out your group, or I'm the reason you got kicked out your group, I won't kill you, but I'll hurt you till you dead inside.
You're like,
she meant that.
When I was listening to it, I was like, when's her birthday? Is she a Scorpio? Because that's what I thought.
Yeah, she was giving big Scorpio vibes.
Her birthday is September 6th. I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, she's a Virgo, gotcha.
Maybe she was just a little like hurt. Because I was like...
Yeah, so I mean, the question is always, how much do we believe Foxy, and how good of a job does she do at making you believe her on a scale from 1 to 5? Cash, what you giving this?
I give it a 4. Okay. Yeah.
Krishna?
I give it a 4.
Yeah. And I mean, we got the headlines to back it up. We know that she moved. Anybody can get it. All right. So dimension 3, delivery and the use of voice. Not to be mistaken for flow. That's the next dimension. But delivery and how she uses her voice. So her timing and her voice as an instrument. We were just talking about this. What y'all think?
Yeah, I don't think anybody could deny that she flowed. She hit that beat, and she knows how to use her voice well. On this album in particular, like I was saying, I appreciate hearing her different voices. It wasn't just the hardcore mafioso super deep register that she uses, which is a skill, I was able to hear more like her speaking voice, that voice that people don't really get to hear if they don't watch an interview, or she had a video where she was speaking on the phone, and I was like, wow, like that's the voice, But I've heard remnants of that in this project, and I appreciate it because it was like, okay, so she has times where she's going to be hard Foxy that we know, but she's vulnerable as well, where she softens up.
Yeah, I mentioned when she does her Caribbean, when she jumps into the broken English and the patois, it's seamless. It's not try hard. she pulls it out when she wants to. And this is the first album where she's really brandishing. She's like, half the album, the second half, she really goes into it. I think on Run Them, most of her verse is in broken English and patois. And is it patois when it's Trini, or is it called
Patois?
It is, okay.
Yeah.
And then we also hear, you know, on the letter, she does this thing where she's like broken up and crying. So that's her softer voice, right? When Fox sounds fed up, you can also hear it. Like it's like
she's angry.
Swedish.
When she's fed up.
Yeah. And then we also hear Foxy do a little singing on it. So that the beginning of Tables will turn it. That's Foxy. And at the end of Fox So Hot, she starts singing. So I mean, you get.
You're just having fun with that one.
You get variations.
Yeah.
Well, I think that like that's the better part of the album is the variation, right? And the seamless variation. It doesn't feel forced.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like somebody was like, do this with your voice or do that with your voice. She just kind of took ownership, and that's the good part about it, I think.
But yeah, something to consider on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats. So on a scale from 1 to 5, how well did Foxy master her delivery and use of voice, Krishna?
I'd give her 5 for her use of her voice.
Wow, our first 5 for Fox 5.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what are we giving Fox for delivery and use of voice? On this
I loved it all. Full 5.
Full 5. All right, we got our first full 5 for Fox. That takes us to Dimension 4, everybody's favorite. So, the same kind of heartbreak that Queen was hinting at, I got when I really dug deep, because my favorite song on here, I'm not even supposed to be putting my opinion in. My favorite song on here is Hood Scriptures. Foxy does this unprecedented flow.
I wrote that down.
She emphasizes one syllable word to start each pattern, and then does the staccato flow. So she says, "Hey, you about to witness the knitting, hard spitting, cigar splitting, blow."
Yeah.
It must be.
Yeah, I wrote that down. I was like, "Oh, okay."
And to keep that pattern for every verse, it's very reminiscent of Philly rappers. Philly rappers are flow masters. They flow in circles around other regions. And so, what notes did you take about that?
Oh yeah, I just wrote down flow is crazy and unique. I said hook 2, and I put Hookah Lounge Anthem.
Hookah Lounge Anthem, right. So you see that, you know, she'll vacillate between, actually she goes in and out. She has a default flow. So her default flow is conversational. It's typical New York, I'm talking to you. So a song like BK Anthem is that. It's typical New York flow. I'm just talking, right? But then she'll have a song like Oh Yeah, where she's borrowing from her Biggie bag. She's rapping like Biggie. She's using Biggie lines. I'm the most critically acclaimed rap chick in the game. You know, that's Biggie all the way. And then she uses this line at the end. I dream filthy. My mom's and pops. She's playful with it. And of course, when she goes into her Caribbean-inspired stuff, she picks up the pace and she throws in the patois. But it's on songs like Fallen and that Hood Scriptures where she's really coming out with a lot of syllable play and then breaking stuff down. So even that classic sequence with the 5-letter words, the fact that she breaks them down like that, like dun 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 dun. It's a build-up. It's a breakdown and then a build-up. And I think that versatility of flows is what makes a great rapper. And so I'm just a little disheartened that Red Handed is behind a lot of that. He co-wrote or, wrote. But, it takes a skill to deliver it. So I always give people who rap ghostwritten rhymes believably their props. Because to be a Bow Wow or Lil' Kim, it's an art. Because some people can't do it. Like, I always use Diddy as an example.
God.
Diddy can't do it. Dr. Dre can.
Okay, right.
Like, we're like, oh, Diddy.
Right.
So in terms of flow, I think I've always on every album respected Foxy's flow because it's different, right? It's not what you actually expect from a woman, right? And that's why I respected it, and I think that's why it's respected throughout the game. Like people are like, she embodies all the things that make hip really makes a hip hop artist and makes a real MC. There's always that conversation about who's a rap artist and who's an MC, and she does both, and she does it well. So I will always go high for her flow.
Yeah, she's flowing. She's flowing all over this album. Nana be like, but on this album, I think you get the biggest variety of flows. So, and patterns. You get stuff like that. Something to consider on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats. Cash, what we giving this on a scale from 1 to 5 the flow?
I fuck with Fox's flow, so this is 5. Solid.
Solid 5.
Solid 5.
Solid 5. We going now. We going. All right. Speaking of 5, Dimension 5, the wordplay and bar intent. So, on first thought, I was like, no, Foxy ain't doing wordplay. Then I realized that is what she does the most on this album. So, Foxy doesn't do a lot of so you're not getting a lot of similes here. She will actually speak in metaphorical language. So she says something like, Foxy, I want to give Foxy the credit for being the first rapper. I've heard many rappers use this variations of this line. Foxy is the first rapper I've heard use you're only nice around mics like Pippin line. And Oh Yeah is completely credited to her. She also said in that song, I'm an in the streets chick, you were in the streets. You were in the street chick, I'm an in the streets chick.
Yeah, exactly.
This is all wordplay. This is playing on words. She didn't say, you're liking. No, she just said, use that homonym kind of. And then her disses they come in that same kind of fashion. So on the song, she says, Barbie dresser, you just my successor. Like, she could have easily said, you look like a Barbie, you can't be me Harley. But she's not saying, Barbie dresser, you just my successor. Like, what? And then she does have, some lines. She's like, something like the circle line. No one can match my delivery. I rep New York like the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah.
Right,
and she did mention circle line within that same joint, right?
Yeah.
And so that's like native to us. Nobody else gonna know what the circle line is.
Right.
So it's like, oh shit, let's see what you did there, Fox.
She's giving you imagery. She's giving you onomatopoeia, all the rhetorical devices. Right. Because with the Caribbean influence, you're getting a lot of brook and rah and all of that, those sounds.
I was about to say that, like the way she uses her sounds, like the to fill a half a bar.
Yeah,
it's so significant.
It is.
Like, yeah, it's like, some other rappers fill up that space with words or foolishness, but she knows she don't need it. She'll just say a little ad lib and it works. And I think that for sure.
Wordplay is there. You just gotta have that ear to catch it, because she's not doing lyrical trickery that a lot of rappers get credited for, and that's why I think that's why I always sided with Fox, because she always seemed more about the craft than she was somewhere in between Lauren and Kim. She wanted that recognition as a spitter a little bit more. Kim just wanted to be in the game.
She wanted to be famous, yeah.
Right.
Like for her, it was the fame.
Yeah. And you'll hear in later albums, Foxy started saying, stop comparing me to chicks. Y'all need to put me in the top 5 and compare me to dudes. Like, I'm better than dudes.
Yeah, but it's true.
Yeah.
Right? It's very true, despite what we are now hearing from Malik telling us all this Ghostwriters stuff, right? It's very true that she is on par with many of the men that she would be counterparts with. And we saw that from the first time we saw her, right? It wasn't like she was, just she appeared and it was like she was groomed to be this way. A lot of artists are groomed. We saw Foxy Brown from day one. This was who she was. And that, you know, she did put pen to paper. Maybe not all the time, but who does that? I mean, like, does everybody do that? Like, I mean, whatever. Right? So, you know, those little things. So I think that, yeah, like, I think that is an important factor in when we talk about Foxy Brown and we talk about her legacy. You know, like, from day one, we knew she could compete with the guys.
Right, for sure.
Something to consider on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats. What we giving her on a scale from 1 to 5 for wordplay and bar intent, Cash?
That's a 4.5. Yeah.
Christian?
I agree that it's a 4.5 simply because if you just listening to a beat, like if you go into hip hop listening to a beat, you miss all of that.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, we are of that generation where we had lyric sheets and recited all those things, right? We knew every line.
Rewind,
Right.
yep. Run it back. Ooh. Dimension 6, punchlines or poetic wisdom and overall quotability. So I always separate this because we get some rappers who, you know, the punchlines are important. Well, I put these together because you either are one of the two. You're either a punchline rapper or you're a poetic wisdom rapper, or you're just trash, right? Your quotability is usually dependent on those two things. So I always use these examples. You get Nipsey, Tupac, and Scarface. Those are poetic wisdom rappers. They don't do punchlines, but they give you things that are quotables. How many times have we seen Nipsey lines quoted, Pac lines quoted, Scarface, because Scarface reads like a sermon.
Right.
And then you get your punchline. Everybody else is a punchline. Jay-Z, I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman. Those are Fab. These are punchline rappers.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
And those are the things that make them quotable, right? So where's Foxy on this? Is she giving us punchlines? Is she giving us poetic wisdom?
I don't feel like just off the top I could say that she's a punchline rapper.
Right.
And especially after what you just said about how she structures her lyrics and bars to deliver those thinkable moments. It's not like you know, not serving it to you like straight in your face. You gotta like run it back sometimes to be like, oh, what did she just say there? You know what I mean? So definitely not punchline. Yeah.
I think she says a lot of memorable stuff on this album. Again, what she was addressing is a part of that, so it helps. What I respect about Foxy is we get a lot of rappers who do subliminals. Foxy always did her subliminals in obvious ways. She wants you to know who she's talking about. She's just not gonna say their name.
Right.
Biggie and Jay-Z, for example, we now know all these stories behind subliminals, but it's like, you expected me to know that? I didn't know that. Their subliminals were like super tucked under. Like, she's saying who she's talking about, right? She says, yeah, he wrote some rhymes, but I blew them up the same. We know who she's talking about. Right. She says, Barbie, dress up. You're just my successor. We know who she's talking about.
Right.
Yeah, so there's memorable stuff because what she's addressing was very current. She addressed it not too far after it happened, and people were waiting to hear it. And the way she does it is memorable. Now, poetic wisdom, I do think because you get vulnerability from her, talking about her own life, some of the ways she puts them, I think she says some poignant stuff, some profound stuff here and there. Like that line I mentioned about her saying, I thought fame is supposed to make you happy. Why is it? She says something on The Saddest Day too that I think sums up how women feel about cheating. She said, why would you throw it all away for one night or something like that? I was like, fair enough.
Look at you. She got you thinking and shit.
I'm a sucker for simplistic, deep stuff. If you say something deep in a simple way, that's like, oh yeah, that does sum it up in a nutshell. You did throw this all away for one night.
Right. Yeah. You can receive that.
Well, I don't think she's a punchline rap. I don't think she's a punchline anything. I think she's deliberate. in what she says, and the delivery is deliberate. And while I don't think that I don't think she gives subliminals at all. Right? I don't think it's subliminal at all. Because if I know, despite when the album came out, or if I know all the stories, that's not subliminal. Subliminal are the things that like the girls do, the women do now, right? These little like jibs and jabs. She was going for hard punches when she was dissing you, and so it's not subliminal. She was telling you, like, it would have been like tell all if she said the name.
Right.
That's all. That's the only difference.
That's the only thing that's missing. Yeah.
Right. That's the only thing that's missing. Like, it's not a tell-all book. She wasn't a video vixen telling all stories, but she was like, you're going to know I'm talking about you, and I'm going to be direct about what you did. And this album is the perfect example of that, right? Like, it wasn't like, well, maybe somebody cheated. She was like, this shit happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the closest she gets is when she says Diddy's name and then bleeps it out. Like, what y'all think? I be dancing around suits like I'm...
Oh my God, I always wondered about that part. Like, why am I not hearing the Diddy?
I think it was a last minute decision because, again, this was her burning bridges, and then she wound up like getting cool.
But everybody knew what belonged there.
Right.
So even listening to it recently, I'm like, you know what? I never heard it say Diddy, but we all know. So you just blew that up for me, okay?
Yeah, it's industry politics are funny, but scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats, the quotability, how memorable are the lines on this album and the things said. Cash, what we giving this on a scale from 1 to 5?
I'm giving it a 4. She got some things on there that I'm like, oh snap, she just went off.
Okay, Krishna?
I'm gonna go with a 3.5, only because, like I said, most people don't listen to lyrics. They listen to the beat, and so they're missing it. Right? I'm sure we missed it, some of it then, but the more you listen to it, the more you'll see it. So I'm gonna give her 3.5, just because it's a little more concealed than it should be.
Got you. Words. Dimension 7. Concepts. So some albums are conceptual albums, but most classic albums have at least one conceptual song. And when we say conceptual song or any conceptual material, it forces you to have to think out the box, or the artist thought out the box when they were doing it. Nas is a great example. Nas is always going to give you a song where he's doing something different. He's rapping backwards, he's writing a letter to jail, you know, he's doing something, right? He's a gun. Do we get anything conceptual on this album?
I think with the letter, there's concept there, you know, because having to think about it, you know, back then how it would apply, like you would be writing a letter for some people to express some of the things she expressed in there to her family members, and now pass this letter to somebody else to read the rest. I'm like, that was real nostalgic to me, right? Because I'm like, damn, I don't hear nobody really referencing the letter anymore.
Right.
But like what she put in the letter was substantial too. Right. And so I definitely appreciated the lyricism there, because I was like, oh, okay, like she talking, like, are you talking to your moms? Are you talking to your brother? It's like, that's real talk, you know?
It's 2001. We've heard the letter thing done in hip hop, but the fact that she was able to put a new twist on it that made it sound just like a new thing, that was genius. I thought, yeah, like you said, pass the letter on. That's the element that made it not a boring song. That's what made it really conceptual. And there's also, we talked about personality and charisma, there's also a skill set to be able to be talking to one person and making the audience care that you're talking to people that they don't know. Ghostface always mentions people that the listener doesn't know. He's like, hey, yo, tell Ishmael he's doing. And
right, you like Ishmael.
That was great, by the way.
But Ghost makes you care about these people. It's like, oh, snap, Wanda. And that's what Foxy's able to do, because what she does, she talks about very public things and private things in the same verse, and she's talking to one person. Man, that is a skill. Like, she talks about the Vibe magazine cover, in the verse that she's talking to her mother. So she's mentioning something that we, the public, can reference, but it's also a very personal thing to her.
Right.
And I thought that's a skill to make us care, to make us want to listen that long. Because some people would be bored. Like, I don't care what you gotta say to your brothers. But,
Yeah.
What I wrote down about the letter, since we brought that one up, was, the passionate on the use of a letter. Those are the things we also think about when we're coming to an end, right? Like, I can write a letter, like we've all seen it in the movies. We probably had some family members who wrote something down. It was like, here's a letter for you, here's a letter for you, here's a letter for you. Because when you're coming to this ending, this conclusion of not necessarily life as meaning your life on earth, but like you're making some big change in your life and you want people to know who they were for you in those moments. That's what I wrote down. Like, that's what that read like to me. Like, she wanted them to know, because she was closing some kind of chapter, and she wanted them to know who they were to her throughout this, this time period of her life. So, yeah.
That was deep, because she was addressing being suicidal, but the end of the letter song sounds like she's suicidal. It's like, did you get the healing? Are you okay?
Right.
Right. I also mentioned in my little note that that's where I heard most of her, what I considered her real voice. It was less Foxy, it was more like she was speaking to these people.
Right.
Yeah.
It was Inga, not Foxy.
Exactly.
There you go. Something to consider on the scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats. What are we giving this on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats, Cash, on the concepts?
I mean, the letter is what held it down, the concept category regarding the whole album, so I can't rank too high there. So I'm gonna say like a 2.5.
2.5, okay.
Yeah.
I'd say a 3, but not just based off the letter, but because I think you get a little bit of that in different spaces. But like Cash said, the letter kind of holds that concept thing down.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll go with a 3.
Y'all are harsh. Like I said, most albums, one good concept is all you need. So you think like Illmatic, he only had one love. People are mind blown. They're like, oh my God.
Hey now.
So what happened here, why it ranked where it did for me, is because I feel fooled. I thought I was getting most of that, and then I somewhere in the wind along the way.
Then you was dancing.
Yeah.
Got you. That takes us to we put these two together, the content dimension. So dimensions 8 and dimensions 9. Dimension 8 is the external content. So the externalized stuff. How much is Foxy talking about social issues, world issues, things outside of herself? In dimension 9, how much is she doing exposition? How much internal monologue and of her life is she giving you? So.
I don't think she's talking about anything social, like outside of herself. Yeah. But again, it's a time period. Nobody was really doing that.
That's not true.
Maybe a few people. I don't want to let it correct. There may be a few people who were doing that.
Some people argue that a good rapper gives you all.
I don't think anybody would have wanted to hear that from her in the moment, right? Like, especially when we talk about all the things that brought this album to fruition, right? Nobody was gonna be like, what's she talk about police brutality? We want to know why she was in the hospital. We had a different way of gossiping this.
Well, it's all how you do it. It's from I'll say so. There's topical songs, and that's where content matters, right? So songs like "Saddest Day," she's talking about relationship, heartbreak, and cheating. She stays on top. That is. But something like BK Anthem, that's outside of her. She's talking mostly about the borough of Brooklyn. So she has it in her to talk about things outside of herself. And it helps the album move along. So if we're looking at the sequence, the first song, she's talking about the controversy. She's like, look, listen to this album, I'm gonna address it. The next song, she's bragging. Then it goes to, oh yeah, she's bragging again. And then BK, she's rapping about BK. Then you get the letter, where she's talking from a vulnerable space. So it's like, she has it in her.
I mean, I don't know. I really don't know.
Go ahead, Cash.
I hear what you're saying. Like she has it in her, but like I guess I would identify more about the stuff where she's speaking about herself because that's what I'm accustomed to from her. You know what I mean? So yeah, like.
Right.
And
Like,
I'm not buying it, but that resonates more with me.
of course,
Yeah.
of course. It's just you want to see an artist at least attempt to do these things. Like Jay-Z got a bigger audience when he started at least trying to speak on other things. Because for a while, Jay-Z was just the diamonds and get out my car shit, dude. And he expanded his repertoire. He started talking about miscarriages and, you know,
he made the song cry.
Yeah, poverty, things like that. And it's like, oh, okay, Jay does have something to say.
Right.
So,
I mean, I think all of them have it. It's just a maturity thing, right? Like, do you mature to that space?
So when it comes to external content, what y'all giving this on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats? How much does Foxy talk about outside things?
I'm gonna give it a 2.
Yeah, 2.
Okay. Now internal content, scale from 1 to 5.
I'm gonna give it a.
All internal.
It's all internal.
4.5.
I'll go 4.5 too.
Okay. Yeah, she's going there. All right, and that takes us to the final dimension, to dimension 10, storytelling. The old 90s rule used to be like, you can't be a good rapper or you can't make a good rap album if you're not giving me a good story. I don't know if that rule still exists, but storytelling is a key component of hip hop. Do we get any storytelling on this album?
I think we get bits and pieces. So I think in the 90s we expected a chapter book, right? Chapter 1, song 2, chapter 3. And this we get a little bit of everything. And like we said in the first half, there's so much going on that the story is like a couple of books kind of smashed together as opposed to one concise story. But I think we get a little bit of it here and there.
Yeah, same.
I would have, on the album that I really want to cover that I think is really Foxy's true classic, and one day I think I'm going to bring you back, Krishna, to do it, Il Nana Part 2, The Fever. She has a song where she's actually telling like a Nas level story about like a mother and her baby, and like she has it in her. And I don't know if we get that here. Saddest Day is more just her speaking on cheating. She has story elements in there, just like the letter. She has story elements, but there's no a children's story on here, or I got a story to tell. She's not, or Today Was a Good Day. She's just not going there on this album. Whether or not you consider that a weakness, that's always up to you. But I know some people feel like, nah, it's missing the story. All it needs is a good story. And I know you and Cash have been saying the whole time, the album should feel like a story. And it doesn't, so.
Yeah, it's a little too discombobulated, like, to be a story. That's my favorite word.
That's black people's favorite word.
I
They
love
love
it.
saying discombobulated and portray.
Right.
Never used that word in my life.
What?
Hey, girl, it's the best word. It's like
It's
gallivanting.
amazing. You gotta say it one time.
You know? So
It just
yeah,
feels
that's what it
good.
is. It's so much disconnect, and it could have been so much better if it was like, it's almost like she needed to put a poster board down with each song and see how they blend together before releasing.
Wow, that's well put. So scale from 1 to 5, what are we giving the storytelling, Cash?
I didn't hear many stories, so that's gonna have to be a 1.
Yeah, I go with 1. We haven't given her 1 on anything. This is fair.
This is fair. She got a lot of 5s in this category. Something for y'all to consider on a scale from 1 to 5. And that concludes the entire review of this classic album, Broken Silence by Foxy Brown. This has been category 2 with my special guests, Kween Kash and Krishna. Please, ladies, thank y'all for being amazing guests and rocking, representing Brooklyn to the fullest, representing black women, representing hip hop culture to the fullest. Is that original art?
Of course it is.
That's dope.
I'm not doing a million things.
can y'all please let the people know where to find you and what you got cooking up next?
So you can find me on Instagram at. God, I have so many Instagram accounts. Okay, so if you want to follow me for my like personal hip hop stuff like that, you can find me at Black Tinkerbell, BLK_Tinkerbell. And I also have an entire site that's devoted to Black women, our mental health, physical health, and very soon our financial health, using my trade to help Black women with their understanding money. And that's called the Baobab Wellness Collective. One word.
Let's get it. I'll be
Thank
following.
you. Yeah,
And then where can they find T is the name?
Oh, of course, you can find T. See, I told you, there's a lot going on over here. You can find T is the name on Instagram at TEA_is the name, and our website is T is the name if you would like to order.
Again, I'll have all these links underneath. And if you go on to rapruler.com, you'll see T is the name as one of our prize partners. Again, if you do the voting on there and your vote matches the average for this particular album or the 2 albums of the month, then you'll win a prize package, and holler at me and we'll work that out. Cash, where can they find you? What you got cooking next?
Hey, follow me at the Queendom, KWEENDOM, or my website, Kween Kash, Cash spelled with a K. And yeah, I have everything on there. Coming up next to me, I'm shooting a series that I wrote and will be starring in, and we start filming this weekend. So I'm excited about that. So be on the lookout. We're taking things real serious to the next level.
Nice. And you have a YouTube channel too?
I do. The Queendom. So if you just follow me on one of these platforms, we can all connect.
Gotcha. and with that, I hope y'all have learned something today. We're still building this global hip hop community. So if you're in Nigeria or Norway, want to hear what you have to say about this culture that we all love and contribute to. And rather than have a magazine tell us how many stars or mics something gets, it's probably best for the people who live and listen to it to decide. And that's what this is for, the Rap Ruler. Go cop a t-shirt. The I Used to Love Her shirt is on the site.
I was wondering.
Oh, I was like, I can't even see this. Okay,
I know, it never shows up.
I'll get mine when I
That's why you gotta go to the rapruler.com to see it. So you can get the tee, you can get the coasters, you can get the t-shirts, or the upcoming Rap Ruler merch. All the merch.
Yeah.
And again, it's been amazing having y'all. Thank y'all for being
Nice meeting you, Krishna.
Nice meeting you too.
Yeah.
Thank y'all for being analysts and experts in what y'all do and representing for the women and representing the split culture. And with that, y'all know how it is. F a Rap Critic. You talk about it while I live. Words and math.